There are a ton of awesome features in the RODECaster Pro II, but before we get too excited, let's take a look at 5 tips and tricks for features that I think are a little more underrated, but no less impressive. And before we begin, I do need to mention that I am using beta firmware, so as usual, you beta believe that it could look different depending on when you're watching this video and which version of the firmware you're using. The first thing we're going to talk about, which has been huge for my workflow, is presets, and I would like to present presets to you. Let me pop on my headphones here. Right now I'm using the Rode Procaster directly into the RODECaster Pro II. Once again, RODECaster Pro and Rode Procaster, two different products. What I've done for right now is I have just selected the Procaster setting in the RODECaster Pro II, and the one thing I have changed is actually the noise gate. So I fine-tuned the noise gate in a way that I think sounds best with my voice right now and the environment that I'm in. However you want to EQ any channel, whether it's a mic, an instrument, anything, once you're done, what you can do is you can go over here to presets, and we have some existing presets, but I can click the little plus icon. I can give my preset a title. In this case, I called it Tom's Awesome Mic because why not? I will click done. And now I have that preset right there. So right now I've got the Procaster into channel 1, but later on, if I plug this into a different channel or I switch to a different mic tomorrow and then I come back to this mic afterwards, I can then quickly and easily just open that preset and it's going to reset everything here. The preset will reset everything exactly as I have it right now. This seems so simple and easy, but if you're somebody like me who uses a lot of different microphones, or you record in different environments or with different people, being able to spend the time that you need dialing in everything until it sounds good and then saving that as a preset so you never have to spend that time again is a lifesaver for your workflow. Speaking of workflows, let's flow into item number 2. Now, as you might know, the RODECaster Pro II has 2 USB connections on the back. And as I mentioned in my last video about computer features, this can be a great way to use 2 computers simultaneously with one RODECaster Pro II. But there's also something else really fun that you can do. Right now, I have the RODECaster Pro II connected to my Mac Mini with one USB connector. And if right now I go into Ecamm Live, for example, we can see that I have RODECaster Pro II Main and RODECaster Pro II Chat as my channels. And those will show up just plug and play on any computer or device that you connect the RODECaster Pro to. You will see Main and Chat. If I connect this to a second computer, I will then have an input-output option called RODECaster Pro II Secondary. But if I take a secondary to add another connection. So now I have both of the RODECaster's USB outputs or inputs, because they're both, going into my M1 Mac Mini. And now when I click on my audio sources, you will see I have Chat, Main, and Secondary. So I have all 3 on the same computer, and both of these are input and output. So the reason that that's super beneficial is if I open up something like Discord, we're going to be talking about Discord and not Datcord. And now when I go into Discord's voice and video settings, I can select the input device as my RODECaster Pro II Main, for example, but the output device I can put as the chat. And now all of Discord is just going to go to the chat channel on the RODECaster Pro II. If I go into Ecamm Live, I can set the input and the output to RODECaster Pro II Main if I want. And if I wanted to go to Artlist and have some royalty-free music playing in the background of my stream, I can then set my computer sound output to RODECaster Pro II Secondary. And now I've got 3 things going on 3 different channels. And then on the RODECaster Pro II itself, I can now move those faders. So let's see, could I do that here? I can't do it while I'm recording, so I'm gonna stop recording here. And now we're just using the regular shotgun microphone. But what I can do now is go into faders, and since I'm using channel 1, that's great, but now I can put USB 1 here as channel 2. I can bring chat up from a virtual fader to a physical fader on channel 3, and I can bring USB 2 over to channel 4. And now I've got all of those things here, so I can bring up my Discord on channel 3, I can bring up my main USB output from Ecamm on channel 2, and I can bring up USB 2 on channel 4, which in this case would be my royalty-free music. So what I've done is not just route all these sources to different outputs, which is really helpful, but I've also been able to assign them to physical faders in the order and the configuration that I want. And now I can press record and record back on the RODECaster Pro II. You can't reassign faders and channels and things while you're recording, because that would probably tear a hole in the universe. I don't know. Now, the third thing to talk about is while we're rearranging channels and all that, being organized is very important. What you might notice, if you're familiar with the RODECaster Pro, you know that channel 1 by default has kind of a pink color to it. But mine, since blue is my favorite color, shocking, I know, I've assigned channel 1 to blue. But if we look up to headphones on channel 1 and I put my Rode NTH 100s with a blue cable coming out of them. Headphones number 1 is pink. So what I can do is I can go into settings, I can go to outputs, headphones, and on each headphone setting, there's an option down here in the corner where I can tap on the color. And now I can just go over to the color that I want. And as I scroll through the colors, you can see the headphone changing. You can see this knob changing. And now I've got channel 1 and headphone 1 synced together. This is good for a lot more than just aesthetic purposes, although that is very, very cool. It's great if you're working with a whole bunch of different outputs and different people, and then you can just know, okay, Tom is blue, Heather is purple, this other person is orange or green or whatever, and you can very quickly, easily know which channel to adjust for that person and which headphone to adjust if they need more or less volume in their headphones. Now, another thing you might have noticed as I've been going through and making changes on the RODECaster Pro II is just like with the RODECaster Pro I, the RCPII, you can see, of course, your levels as you're recording. I have my main output up here, and I have my mic input right here on channel 1. But if I stop talking, you see this little white thing over there? This is a hugely helpful feature that I haven't really seen talked about yet, and that is when you change the faders physically, you actually see them change digitally as well on the display. So especially in a situation like mine where I have broadcast meters turned on, I can very precisely dial in the level that I want. I can put this up to unity, which is -15, and now I can see, even if a level's not hitting there, I know where this fader is. Even if there's not sound going through this channel or any of these channels, I can see where they're set very accurately. Of course, you can do that just by looking at them physically on the RODECaster Pro II or the RODECaster Pro I. But now at a glance, I can also see where they are accurately set there, and they are perfectly precise. The screen matches the physical faders like super precisely. Oh, and also I did have somebody ask me if you could take off the faders themselves, and I was scared to try this, but yes, with a little bit of pressure, you can take off the faders. The faders themselves are made out of metal, and then under each one, the actual control is a little slim piece of metal as well. I don't know why you would need to do that. Somebody asked, and you can. That's a bonus feature, though. That does not count as an underrated feature. And for the 5th underrated feature that I want to talk about, this really blew me away because it was one of the most requested things from the RODECaster Pro I, and that is the ability to output Bluetooth to speakers or headphones. You can finally do that with the RODECaster Pro II. So I have this little Bluetooth speaker here, but this same process would work with pretty much any other speaker or headphones. I'm going to turn this on. I like the sound that it makes. There, now I'm in Bluetooth pairing mode. So on the RODECaster Pro II, I can just go into the Bluetooth settings. I can click on search for device. If this hadn't already been paired, it would show up, but I've used it before, so it's here, and I can click connect. And now it's paired to my Bluetooth speaker. And if you want to prove that, I guess we could probably, oh, there it is, I hear it. We can bring up echo. I don't have an echo effect turned on. I'm just getting feedback. So that's cool. So now I have a Bluetooth speaker connected to the RODECaster Pro II. I had a lot of fun putting this in my wife's office yesterday and talking to her from here. Fun for me, not so much for her. And right up here at the very top of the display, there are 2 icons. One of them is for your monitor outputs, and the other is for a Bluetooth speaker. The Bluetooth icon won't show up if you don't have a speaker connected, but once you do, it'll pop up right there. Right now, I can turn this dial to adjust my monitor outputs, but if I click this dial in, it will switch over to Bluetooth, and then I can adjust the Bluetooth level outputs. And I'll turn that down so we don't get any interference. So that is how you would change this volume and your regular physically connected monitors separately. They are not tied together. Now, there's definitely a lot more I could cover with the RODECaster Pro II, but the whole point of this video is just to show you a few things that I think are really exciting that are kind of maybe getting overshadowed with all of the other big features because there's so much packed into this device. If you get a RODECaster Pro II, definitely set aside some time to play around with it. Don't just stick on the surface levels, but really kind of dive in and see what you can do, see how you can improve your workflow, because there's just so much packed into this thing. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just one of my favorite things ever. And speaking of things that are some of my favorite things ever, thank you to everyone who helps support my channel through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships.
Hejsan och välkommen till Pedda sitter i Amerika och spelar in lite saker här för Toms kanal. This here that I got is the RODECaster Pro II. It's like one of those things that when you use it, the intuitive phase, and you know, you press here and then you turn a knob and swoosh,